Film number one. We are going to start with the 1985 film, Mr. Berry Gordy's The Last Dragon. We'll start with that one. This film, I think, actually would be the most constructive of the four films that we are going to discuss. There's definitely still quite a bit of racism, white supremacy in the film, but I think, this was at least an attempt to offer black people something constructive. Again, this film came out in 1985. It's kind of like a black karate film, quote unquote, kung fu movie, lots of fight scenes with predominantly black cast. The title tips you off, Berry Gordy, infamous with Motown. Funny film, not a lot of vulgarity and whatnot. I think for folks, if you are under 20, I would say check this film out, and you'll get an idea when you hear people complain and talk about how lewd and graphic all the music and movies and things are. If you watch this, I think it'll be like, oh wow, this does seem pretty mild in comparison to most of the entertainment that's on today. There's still some profanities in there, some B's and what have you, but it's pretty mild in comparison to what we have now. The short, I'll give you the short and then just hop to the constructive material in the film. The short of it, you basically have a black male. He's studying martial arts, kung fu. He has a non-black, non-white instructor, so-called Asian male. And he, wants to do the correct thing. He's not into bullying folks and trying to be violent. Just, is into studying and refining his craft. Of course, conflict with other non-white people, other black people specifically, has to ensue. Specifically, the character Shonuff, black male, incidentally, darker black male. He doesn't like our main character in the film. Leroy Green is his name, Leroy Green. He doesn't like him, wants to fight him to prove he's, the baddest of the baddest, and that's a big part of the plot. The other part of the plot in the film, our main character's love interest, Laura Charles. She is a music video host. Everyone thinks she's the most adorable thing in the world. Very pale, very light complexion, non-white, non-black female with a white parent. I actually didn't know that until today when I did some research for the film, but she does have a white parent, which is quite interesting. At any rate, a white man wants to get his video played on this black female's program. She doesn't want to do it. He's white. Of course, he's got some muscle, and he goes to harm this non-white female, Laura Charles. Our hero, Leroy Green, of course, saves the day. He saves her, repeatedly throughout the film. And eventually, the white man who wants to get his video played and is fighting with Laura Charles to get his video played, he joins forces with the black male, Shonuff, who wants to fight Leroy Green. He gets this guy. He says, hey, this will solve all of my problems. I'll get rid of this guy who keeps jumping in and saving this female from, me beating her down because she won't play my video. I'll get this black male Shonuff to take care of our hero, and then I'll be able to, do whatever I want with Laura Charles and get the video played. Of course, Leroy Green saves the day, vanquishes everyone, and gets the girl. The end. The racism, the aspect of racism, white supremacy in the film, I've already touched on it. Actually, before I even get to that, I again want to stress, I do think easily this film is the most constructive of all of the four films. I really think the folks who put it together, I think they did make an attempt to offer black people something constructive. Not every black character in the film is, stupid and vulgar. You actually have some black male characters, some black characters, period, that you like, that are saying things that are constructive, that are trying to not get in conflict with other black people. It's something I think you could probably watch and still enjoy. I think there are some things that you definitely would, want to be mindful of and would want to call out in the film, things that support the system of white supremacy. But I definitely think there are some lessons that are very constructive in the film, and I do think they were attempting to do the right thing. And in fact, I think this would be true across the board. I think if they were more informed, like if the folks who did this film, Barry Gordy and everyone involved, if they were more informed about racism, white supremacy, I suspect it could have been even better. So constructive things that I would pull out of the film. Number one, I think the main character is really, it is an attempt at codification. He's careful with what he says. He's careful with what he does. He tries to be very disciplined with his craft. When C.O.W.S comes to fight him, the film opens up with C.O.W.S, coming and trying to pick a fight with him, and, he avoids contact. He does this repeatedly. C.O.W.S tries to instigate and kick off some conflict, and he does everything that he can to minimize conflict with other black people. I thought that was outstanding, where you actually see a black male character doing that in a film. And I feel like it's rare. Most films, it's all about, set it off and busting a cap in somebody. But this one, you actually have a black male who is, even though he is trained to fight and can fight well, but he's really attempting to not fight, and especially to not fight with other black people. Outstanding. Let's see, what else did I think was really constructive? One that I'm going to save for the end that I thought was great, and I think it ties beautifully with counter-racism. I'll save that for the end. I definitely want to pick out some of the aspects that do support the system of racism, white supremacy, and we all do, we all do. But definitely, as I said, the main character, Laura Charles, who's played by Vanity, she does have a white parent, and it shows. She is very pale, and I think, that is extremely harmful for black people to consistently get these images of, the main black female character who is supposed to be everything about beauty and the most desirable, sexually attractive female on the screen, consistently being the lightest person on the screen. Even if you go back to Lena Horne, not just with Halle Berry and Paula Patton, this is not something new. This has been going on for a long time. Remnants of, master slave owners creeping out, Sally Hemings, Thomas Jefferson. That's what we're talking about. That is, these folks who are very pale are the product of voluntary and involuntary rape under racism, white supremacy. And as our guest Sharon Hall said, white people, they have a pattern of treating these non-white people who have a white parent better than black people, other non-white people. One of the ways that this is manifested is, they get easier access to being entertainers, movie stars, told that they're, beautiful because they are closer to white. And actually with Vanity, I remember this film. Like I said, I think this film came on a lot, or at least in my life. I remember it, being on television a lot. Maybe people can call in and say whether or not they've seen it before. But I know with Vanity, I always thought, oh my gosh, she's, super attractive. I think a lot of people did thought that, she was attractive. And it's not about, trying to say that these people are not attractive. It's just about pointing out that it is incorrect to consistently devalue darker people and elevate individuals who are closer to what is the characteristics that are associated with people classified as white. It is incorrect to consistently do that, and there should be a major effort for it to stop completely. And it shouldn't be looked at as, we have to denigrate lighter complexion non-white people to elevate darker non-white people. That's not even it. It just means having more images, making a consistent effort to make sure that we value and reaffirm the beauty and value of darker non-white people. We should really make a consistent effort to do that. At any rate, with Vanity, as I said, I didn't know that she had a white parent until I, did some digging today. And I realized that I've seen her quite a bit. When I saw her, I thought that she was perhaps in Color Purple with Prince, which also came out during the 80s. She was not, but I checked her biography. This is on Internet Movie Database, and I'll read you a little bit of what's there. Her real name is, at least what's listed here, Denise Katrina Matthews. This is what it says. Vanity is glamorous Canadian ex-model and lead singer of all-girl group Vanity Six from German and African-American parentage, who specialized in playing sultry female characters, often in trouble with the law. I can hear Pam. I can hear her voice in my head. Vanity first appeared on screen in the biographical tale of writer Jack London titled Klondike Fever, 1980, before venturing into more gritty territory, such as the slasher film Terror Train, 1980, Tanya's Island, also 1980, and The Last Dragon. Her best two performances, they're saying she was a blackmail victim in Roy Scheider's 52 Pickup. I actually want to check that film out. That sounded kind of interesting. And she was also in Action Jackson with Carl Weathers and Craig T. Nelson. Action Jackson. I remember that film as well. I remember she was in a sexual relationship with Craig T. Nelson, a suspected racist, and she was a heroin addict. He was her supplier of heroin. It shows them engaged in sexual play, and he's offering her drugs at the same time. I believe he even offers to shoot her up on the screen in Action Jackson. Again, the continued degradation of the quote-unquote mulatto temptress. At any rate, so this aspect is in The Last Dragon. I think the main character, Leroy Green's character, he's also significantly lighter than the villain, C.O.W.S, in the film. Also, if you just kind of pull back and look at the film, basic plot, you have a white man who is in conflict and mistreating a non-white female, right? And then at the same time, you have two black males in conflict, although one of them, our character, the hero, Leroy Green, is attempting to not be in conflict. That's pretty much what's going on. And the white man in the film, Eddie Arkanian, uses this conflict to his advantage to aid his scheme in harming the black female. I think that just, again, white people are always able to manipulate conflict between victims. They are always able to consistently utilize that to their benefit. It always works to their advantage, and that's why I think we should really make every effort to not be in conflict and mistreating other non-white people. Really make an effort to steer clear of that. Let's see. Also in this film, Cosby Show moments. Keisha Knight Pullman is actually in this film. She is Leroy Green's sister. In the film, the main character. She's his sister. You see her, she gets some screen time. She's eating breakfast at the table. And it just made me think not only of The Cosby Show, but it unfortunately made me think of Tyler Perry, who had Keisha Knight Pullman in one of his films as a prostitute. And I just thought, man, that's why I said I think The Last Dragon, even though I do see some aspects, that support racism, white supremacy, it is way better than 90% of the stuff that comes out today. I would much rather have this and have my few gripes here and there about some of the main characters in the film being light complexion and some of the villains being darker. I would much rather have that than to have Keisha Knight Pullman as a prostitute. Any black person as a prostitute or a male as a pimp. I think we really should be done with that. Let's see. Other things I want to point out from the film. Also, it made me think of The Cosby Show, too, the gentleman. And it's pitiful because I don't know his name, and I don't know his real name. But on The Cosby Show, he was Cockroach. He's also in this film. He's one of the dancers. And, leave the Cosby Show alone. I've referenced that before. Let's see. Oh man, yeah, this was key, and I don't think I would have paid attention to this as much when I was more confused about racism. This film, Berry Gordy, a lot of black people. I think this film was made. It was intended for a quote unquote black audience, mostly black people going to see this film. I think I could be incorrect. There are a lot, and I mean a lot, of non-black people in this film, non-black, non-white people, and white people. And it had the feeling that I think consistently with black people, we really will go overboard to show that, we are not trying to out anybody, that we want to include everybody. I think, what do they call it, xenophilia, when you just want everybody to participate. And I'm not saying there's anything incorrect about that, but just it seemed like they really wanted to make an effort to make sure that this was not, perceived as an all-black cast. Like they wanted to make sure that they included lots of non-black people in the film. I don't know, maybe that was a financial decision. I'm not saying anything is incorrect about it, but it reminded me of Calvin Thomas when he was on the program, and he talked about how you have every color in the rainbow but black. And just you don't have the National Association for the Advancement of Black People. Just not wanting to be too black about things and doing something to aid black people. I'm not saying that was their intention, but it definitely did look like they were making an effort to make sure they were open-armed to anyone who was not black to participate in the film. And I might be incorrect about that. Let's see. And I don't see that done in terms of white people and non-black, non-white people. I don't see them doing that very often, like really bending over backwards to include black people in their projects. I guess, if you want to think about it that way. I'm not saying, there's anything incorrect about the folks who were involved in The Last Dragon. Not saying that they shouldn't have done it, just, comparison, contrast. Yeah, I shared the information about Vanity. I suspect a lot of people have seen this film or been influenced by it. I know Busta Rhymes, he did the spoof of this film in one of his videos, and I think it's kind of a cult classic, at least amongst black people in the Northwestern Hemisphere. The few things that I noted notwithstanding, and I mean the color issue in this film is, it's pretty significant. They have DeBarge has also got some videos here, and that group is very pale. I don't know if they have some white grandparents or what the deal is there, but it seems like a lot of the characters that you end up pulling for, rooting for, tend to be lighter in this film, unfortunately. Racism, white supremacy to be expected.